So sometimes it looks a little bit different in other states. Like for instance, I didn't go in and look today, but as an example, I typically would provide like Wisconsin. Wisconsin has upwards of 70,000 people who could be incarcerated at different levels and even in community centers. But Minnesota is the flip side. We have very few costly incarceration beds and spend most of our time supervising people who are living in communities in their home environments. All right, Joanne, next slide. So where are those facility locations? Click this, it's clear. We have facilities that are located all around the state. So by name, they're Correctional Facility Faribault, Lino Lakes, Moose Lake, Oak Park Heights, Rush City, and Stillwater. Shakopee is the only correctional facility for women. So if someone has a commitment to the Commissioner of Corrections for a felony and is female, they will go to Shakopee and stay at Shakopee. Togo, Willow River, and there's a living unit at Shakopee, are known as our challenge incarceration programs. So they're like a boot camp atmosphere that really ingrains some behavioral change programs and chemical dependency treatment for people who need that. It can significantly cut their incarceration time down so that they can be released. So specific men or women can belong in those boot camp programs. So these are the state-run correctional facilities, not to be confused with some Bureau of Prisons facilities. So Minnesota as a state also has some BOP facilities. Those are not run by Department of Corrections. Those are federal, like Sandstone, Waseca, and Rochester. So those are federal facilities. But what you see here are Minnesota Department of Corrections run facilities. Other things of note, Red Wing is our only state-run juvenile facility, and its focus is on young men and boys who meet that threshold. We don't have adult-run or youth correctional facilities for girls because the number is so significantly small in this state. So Red Wing is our youth program. Shakopee is our incarceration center for women. The rest of them that you see on the screen have adult men. All right, Joanne, next slide. So here's the sticky wicket, supervision services. So oftentimes, like thinking about employers or onboarding people into school, when we strike up partnerships and people say, so-and-so, and they're being released to this community, can we connect with your agents? Well, we may or may not deliver supervision services in that area. So supervision like probation or traditional parole, as the term is that folks in our audience might know, is actually delivered in 3 different ways in the state. So depending on where you reside, it could be delivered from one of these 3 entities and for different reasons. So there's county court services and county probation. Those are typically in smaller county areas where they do supervision for direct court services kinds of things. So people who have just jail sentences, they're strictly on probation, right? County court services may deliver that. There's also something called Community Corrections Act counties. So those typically are higher volume counties, like Hennepin, Ramsey, Washington, or some counties that come together and they deliver correction services for people who are on any form of probation or on supervised release. And then we have DOC field services. And as you can see from the map, we do deliver services just about everywhere across the state, but depending on county court services and what they choose and fund to supervise and deliver, or if there's a CCA jurisdiction and what they supervise and deliver, State Department of Corrections is out having field agents supervising people across the state, except in those 2 little white areas on your screen. I believe it's Hennepin and Ramsey counties are all delivered by Community Corrections Act. So they deliver all forms of supervision in those 2 areas. So we partner with all of these different corrections agencies in order to deliver the best of supervision services that we can. And we have lots of different agreements. Pass-through funding comes from the legislature. And somehow the 3 systems all seem to work together in delivering public safety at the community level. All right, next slide, Joanne. So I've dipped you a little bit into the world of corrections, gave you the overview of our different facilities, where we're at, our supervision services that span across the state, our partners that do this work. So Department of Corrections as an agency really exists to provide safety and accountability for our staff, for impacted clients, for incarcerated people, and really for all of you as taxpayers throughout the state. So providing safety and accountability, public safety. So we're truly meeting our state's goals, though, around safety and accountability when we're transforming lives. So this is our department's mission, and it has been for the past couple of years under this administration. So it isn't enough just to contain people in correctional facilities or to surveil them on supervision in communities. But when we focus on transforming lives, our work has greater meaning. So the programs, services, and partnerships and things you'll hear about today, the work is valued not only for providing safety and accountability, but really for producing more safety and accountability by helping to create a safer Minnesota. So we transform lives for a safer Minnesota. That's our mission. So how do we do that? These really have, these three items have been our quest over the past couple of years in the department, again, under this administration, but reorganizing ourselves and thinking differently about how we can provide those transformative services and really help to change lives. So for our incarcerated population, transforming lives starts with these three things. And we're really focused on implementing these across our facilities and then into our supervision agencies as well. So things that start with like assessments. So a comprehensive kind of intake and assessment process that helps us understand individual strengths and the needs of people we serve. We kind of liken it in our department to the same things that would happen if you went in for a medical condition. And certainly if it was a critical medical condition that happened today and you were in emergency care, what are the things that a team could gather around you, take a look at all these critical conditions or things that are contributing to your overall health, work with you to figure out a process to address all of those things, and then connect you to those interventions and services you need. That's exactly what this plan is. So comprehensive intake and assessment. So we learn what's driving people's criminal behavior and the challenges in their lives. A multidisciplinary team across department units and areas, and maybe even stakeholders, like people like Jay at DEED, who can help with employment or even future employers, but coming together to help design what that is with the person in mind based on their strengths, their assets, and their needs. But that we figure out how to offer a full set of person-centered programs. So if we're truly doing assessments about people who reside in facilities or those folks we serve that we aim to change, what are all those pockets of things that are necessary to offer them? And how can the department put things in place to offer them while people are incarcerated to help them change? So a full set then of person-centered programs and truly transformative programming. Okay, next slide. When people think about folks who are in prison, oftentimes they think those people are in prison and that's where they're at. But reality is 95% of our incarcerated population will be leaving our facilities. So when you think of prison, oftentimes folks think people are put away for a long time. But our reality is some people we see for weeks at a time, maybe a couple months at a time, up to that year, 5 years, 22 years, 32 years, right? So it all depends on the individual, their circumstances, their criminal offenses, as to their length of stay with us. So I think median average is around 2 to 3 years. Ray or Joanne, if you know that differently, but I think that's kind of the median. That's the average that we see for folks who come with the department. So we're trying to build that full range of program options for people, right? Just as I had mentioned. So it comes in 3 different ways, though. Programs can be truly voluntary, right? We can offer all kinds of opportunities and people choose to do the things they participate in. And we'll highlight what some of those are in a bit. Some programming can be mandatory or directed. So there are some statutes that are actually on the books that say DOC has to do these specific kinds of programs for people in order for them to be released or be considered for other kinds of release programming. So one of those, if someone is convicted with multiple DWI offenses and earns their way into a Minnesota state prison, it says we need to provide chemical dependency programming, and they get the fast track for that programming. So if the risk and need is so great, we also sometimes direct people to programming. So we have directives. Something like that would be if someone has ongoing chemical dependency that's connected to their criminal conviction. We may say you're mandated to attend chemical dependency programming while you're in a correctional facility. If someone has lower educational scores or doesn't have a high school diploma or GED, we might mandate that they participate in education, because we know the influence of someone's reading and education level helps ongoing attainment and definitely is linked to employment outcomes, right? So we may mandate programming as well. The things that we're going to talk to you about are generally programs and services that are offered throughout our facilities. So they're not offered at all facilities and maybe not offered at the exact same level. So some prisons that you saw have more space for programming, especially some of our newer facilities, right? But if you think back to a long time ago, Stillwater wasn't designed as a place for transformative change for people. It was designed 100 years ago as a space to lock up people, right? So we've converted spaces and done things, but prisons' locations, their physical layout may change what kinds of transformative programming opportunities there are. Some facilities might focus on more kinds of chemical dependency treatment or those kind of interventions and less on work opportunities. And some facilities might offer more work programs and education opportunities and less about treatment services. So those things all come into play. It's got to be the right person at the right facility with the right needs to match the right programming. And then it depends if it's statutorily defined or policy mandated, and there's always a choice, right? As hard as some of us might try to influence people to participate in programming, it is always their choice, even if it's mandated or by policy. Certainly there can be consequences for those choices. Like I had mentioned, if someone is a DWI, they need to participate in treatment, or they're not, they can't be on any kind of release programs, they can't step down, right? But it's a choice, and if they choose not to, there are things that we have in place too. So we have lots of options at different places. Some things are mandatory, some are voluntary, and timing and location are everything. So we'll talk generally about what's offered and opportunities. So next slide. So generally across our department though, every correctional facility offers mental health therapy, and that can come in different forms. We can manage critical care, like if you or I would need some kind of critical hospitalization today for some unique needs, or suicidal thoughts or anxiety, it just becomes too much for us. Correctional facilities can handle that type of care in an instant today. They can also do ongoing therapy through regular appointments, just like you or I might see a therapist for some support. And they also do some self-help groups for life management. So depending on where someone is at with their mental health, Department of Corrections at any facility can step in with those range of services for people. And then I mentioned substance use disorder treatment, so chemical dependency treatment. Our historical model in the department is definitely evidence-based. We have some fantastic outcomes for people who complete our chemical dependency programs. It typically was a longer-term residential type of treatment, actually up to 8 months of prison chemical dependency treatment. We're shifting now to more of a blended model that might help us address a greater need of people. So there still would be residential care, but we're also going to start offering almost like some outpatient treatment so that people could do treatment part of their time and then attend school or go to work too. So we can have a blended model of addressing greater people's multiple needs. We also provide people who have treatment for people who have sexual offenses. And then we offer a continuity of care to community release programs too. So those programs are also shown to be very effective at reducing people's risks of having the same kind of future criminal activity. The last layer is, it's called personal violence interventions, but to most lay people like you or I, we would say that's domestic violence programming. So we're starting to see an uptick in the amount of people that we have who are incarcerated for violence against people they live with, typically a significant other. So it's called personal violence interventions. And by this summer, we'll be having some long-term cognitive behavioral, a new group and program that's almost like a year-long program for folks who have that kind of background. So we can provide some transformative change for them while they're incarcerated too. All right. So we talked about these bigger programs that we have, right? Cognitive behavioral chemical dependency programs, about mental health programming, programs for people with sex offenses, but there are lots of different self-development programming that can be available to anyone. And most of these typically are volunteer programs. So the other things I showed you, not the mental health, but chemical dependency, personal violence, and programming for sex offenses, those are often directed programs. So we will say things like you need to participate or, right? The things that you see on the slide right now typically are voluntary programs that people participate in based on their own interests. The top one, I call it making new choices. Joanne and I were thinking, what's it like a term that people would get, right? But some different kinds of programming that help people change their thinking and behaviors. We call it cognitive behavioral change programs, but it helps people manage their thinking, their feelings, and their impulsivity. If we can help them build some concrete skills to kind of slow down their decision making, it helps decrease their risk of, losing their temper, decreasing the violence, all kinds of different things. And one of the classes actually that Joanne and some partners are working on offering in the next couple months is making new choices for the employment sector. So it's a class specifically that's designed to change thinking and behavior in the workplace, to become better employees, right? That value work. So that's one area of self-development. Another one or two are really those recreation activities and art programs. And Ray might talk about art by way of education too, but I think it's significant to talk about here is self-development, right? Certainly recreation and art programs allow people space and time to exercise and to create, and those are important things in a correctional facility to help us fill people's time and to maintain those things. But I think the bigger thing about offering recreation and art programs are people are learning healthy habits, right? And self-care for now and for in their future. Things that I can do while I'm incarcerated that translate beyond the fence, right? Taking care of my mind and my body and my spirit. They're important things, and we consider that self-development programming for them. Restorative justice is another opportunity that we provide for people who are incarcerated and on the outside. But restorative justice really is just about that. Restorative ways of handling justice, that we make things right, making amends between victims and communities and the people who've offended. It can go all the way from someone meeting with the victim of their offense in a way to understand and make amends, or broadly, people who are incarcerated can support victim organizations, do fundraisers, support them in different ways by in-kind services, right? So that's restorative justice, and that's a self-development program that thousands of people in our correctional facilities participate in, trying to make things right. And I think that's my slide. So I turn this over to Joanne to talk more about our work programs and the kinds of opportunities that we provide inside.
Thank you, Kelly. Can you all hear me okay? Just want to be sure because I can't see anything. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anything. I just only see the slides, the presentation. So as Kelly said, there are a variety of work opportunities for the incarcerated men and women to be able to participate in. And you can see some of the things that are listed here as different work assignments that they may choose to work in. Generally, the men and women, when they're their first work assignment, when they come into the facilities through Shakopee or St. Cloud, the intake facilities, generally that first work assignment that they will be able to obtain is working in food service. After they have completed all their assessments, and as far as the men are concerned, when they are transferring to the next facility, they would also move into that food service position for the first work opportunity. When people are in those work opportunities, they have to stay in those opportunities for at least 90 days. And then after 90 days, if they want to choose to get into another type of assignment that maybe more closely relates to their interest, or they want to develop and gain new skills, they could bid and put in a request to get into a different type of work assignment. As you can see from the list here, ground maintenance, building maintenance, tutors and clerks are more of a kind of like clerical data entry type positions, barbers, cosmetologists, again, food service and the ICWC. Those are very much similar employment opportunities that are on the inside that you would see in competitive employment. So for example, in one of the previous work programs, there was one of the men that were participating in the Lino facility. He was working in the building maintenance. So he was doing a lot of that HVAC, heating and ventilation, air conditioning and ventilation work. I believe he had done that for 4 years. And so he had just gained 4 years of experience through his incarceration. And upon his release, he took that skill that he gained on the inside and went to an employer in the community and, applied for an opportunity and really related all of his learnings and his skills from what he had gained while on the inside. So again, the work that's being done inside is those skills are transferable to those same type of employment opportunities within the community. So with that, the men and women, as they're gaining these different work skills and experiences on the inside, they are really encouraged to as they are preparing for their release and developing those resumes to reflect the work experience gained inside on their resumes. Sometimes, their first thought is, I don't want to put that on my resume. I just don't want to think about, this time, or I want to forget about it. But that putting those skills, that work experience in their resume helps show that they have what the employer is looking for to help fulfill the workforce needs. Also, it eliminates any gaps that may occur in work history due to being incarcerated. And for some of the individuals that are working on the inside in these various jobs, this may really be their first real work experience that they've gained, in their lifetime, up until this point. Or sometimes in other instances, it's the longest job someone's had held on to, whatever that job is in the inside, whether, if they're a barber or that clerk or working in the food service kitchen, that might be the longest job that they've ever held in their lifetime. So, they're gaining new skills when they're working on the inside. They're developing that work history, and they're also developing their work experience. Then they do have the staff that are there with them to help teach and coach and kind of overlook the work that they're doing, to help with any training or, ensuring, the quality of the work is at the level it needs to be at. Another work opportunity is through our MNCOR industry program. And MNCOR industry does operate in 8 of our state prisons. So they are in, MNCOR operates in Faribault. And in Faribault, they have woodwork, cabinetry type work, They also do laundry services. They have custodial production services that they are putting together, mixing chemicals, and also subcontract labor. In our Moose Lake facility, there is textile, printing. They have also seating, upholstery, and again, subcontract work. At our Togo facility, they deal with firewood. At the Oak Park Heights location, they have the centralized canteen services. So when the incarcerated men and women are needing to order personal supplies, stamps, envelopes, lotions, clothing, or anything of that nature, all of those items are distributed through our canteen, or are put together, are assembled through the canteen services at Oak Park, and then distributed to the facilities to be distributed to the men and women that order those particular items. At our Rush City facility, they deal with the license plates and stickers. And again, there's subcontract work that is available through Rush City. And at Shakopee, they do textile work. They do some work on some safety products, and again, subcontract labor. And at Stillwater, they deal with some mattresses and upholstery, seating. There's some warehouse and logistical work. So also some distribution as it relates to the canteen services. And again, there's subcontract work there as well. And then lastly, at the Mincor Bridge location, they do warehouse type work along with that subcontract work. So again, those are more light manufacturing, maybe more skilled labor jobs where they're learning about production goals and fulfilling quotas and working as a team. They have opportunities for people to be in lead positions to kind of help facilitate the work that needs to get done. And so it's just another way to gain skills or to increase or enhance skills that people have prior to their incarceration. Because there are a variety of people, multiple people that prior to their incarceration, they were, working in the community and had decent paying jobs and were, sustaining their families with livable wages. And so, it's not as if everybody incarcerated has not had any type of employment in the community. With that, I will pass it on to Ray to talk about some of our educational programming. So Ray, you are up.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. If you were paying attention to our earlier slides, you will remember that Minnesota incarcerates on a rolling average about 7,400 adults every day. Of that 7,400, about 2,300 of those adults are going to school. Our education program with the Department of Corrections covers a wide variety of student needs, all the way from developmental education through secondary, men and women that are working on their GED or high school equivalency. We have post-secondary options, even higher education options. What I'm really focused on today, though, is the 600 students approximately every year that we graduate in the career technical field. Within the Department of Corrections, and let me point this out. Even though you proofread your slides 1,000 times, I wish that 14 said 16. Full curriculum, career and technical classes, and 3 certification programs. Those 3 sort of standalone certification programs are, of course, OSHA 10, which a lot of people are going to be familiar with, ServSafe, which is a certification offered through the food service industry. And we also operate a forklift safety, safe operation program. Next slide, please. Looking over the career and technical courses that we offer, probably the ones on the left are not going to, my left anyway, aren't going to surprise anybody, right? The Department of Corrections, within a prison, learning carpentry, drywall, floor covering, paint and decorating, masonry, cabinet making, barbering, cosmetology. Those are probably the things you think of when you think of technical education or job training within a correctional facility. But there's also the ones on the right. Minnesota has done a good job of trying to keep up with the industry. What the industry is saying is that we need more technically trained workers. We need workers who don't just aren't just able to swing a hammer. We need people who can do the calculations, manufacturing skills, machine technology and welding. Heavy equipment operator is a very popular class, both at our Faribault facility and at our women's facility in Shakopee. Computer networking and computer careers, engineering, drafting, business management. I guess what I'm saying is we've tried to listen to the marketplace and offer educational courses that meet the needs of not only our students, but also the economic needs of Minnesota. Maybe I'll throw this out as long as I'm on this slide. Some of these programs, for instance, our carpentry program, we run that in 3 months. We combine it, and when I say we, I'm talking about Faribault. I'm the education director at Faribault. We combine our carpentry with our drywall, our floor covering, and our cabinet making in order to create sort of a construction trades program. Each one of those individual topics is a 1 quarter or 3 month program that build together into a year-long program. Depending on the topic, depending on the subject matter, we'll change the length of the course. Engineering and drafting, guys are generally in that program for probably half of a year. Heavy equipment operation, that's usually a 4 months program. Sometimes our computer careers will last even longer than that. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. You've heard earlier that not every facility offers every program. That's true. This is our chart of the different programs, career and technical education programs that we offer and where we offer them. You'll notice some of them are offered at several facilities. Faribault, the first one on the list, that's where I'm at. Faribault is our largest prison in Minnesota, and it's probably the one that's most focused on education. We have the largest education program here at Faribault. So of course we're offering the most of the career and technical. I'm trying to think if there's anything that jumps out there that would be of interest to point out. Maybe I could do this. Workplace human relations. What we noticed here in education is that sometimes just giving our students the technical knowledge in a career field is not enough to help them gain, retain, and advance in a career. Sometimes our adult learners were having trouble in things apart from just the job skills. It was, how do I find a job? How do I keep this job? How do I communicate with my boss? How do I communicate with my coworkers? How do I advance in a job? That's what workplace human relations is. And as you can see, we try to offer it across the board. Any place that we're teaching job skills, we're trying to also pair that with teaching those workplace human relations skills, because sometimes what gets you in trouble on the work site is not just your technical knowledge of your job, but it's the way that you relate and interact with your employer and fellow employees. Yeah, let's go on to the next slide. We also team with a handful of partners. We've been teaming with some of the Min-State system for several years now. Here at Faribault, for more than 10 years, we have teamed with South Central College. We have offered a mechatronics certificate, which is a one-year certificate, for numerous years now. As of this this current semester, the one we've just started, we start our semesters top of the year. We are now offering a 2-year diploma program and broadening that mechatronics degree out. So in the first year, students receive a certificate. In the second year, they earn a full diploma. At some of the other facilities, we team with Pine Tech, we team with Fond du Lac, in order to offer career training as well as the Min-State degree that goes along with it. These are certificate programs, except of course at Faribault, where we're now offering the diploma program. It's our goal to make as much of our as much of the career and technical education that we can, to make that transferable into the Min-State system. That's sort of a new objective for us. So we're building that right now. That's sort of a current build that we're doing right now. We're crosswalking a lot of the career and technical curriculum that we've been teaching with our Min-State, within the Min-State system, to make sure that students are getting credit for the career and technical education they accomplish inside when they get outside. Let's go. Maybe I'll explain that a little more on the next slide. One of the best ways to make sure that students are getting post-secondary credit for what they accomplish with us on the inside is to make sure that we're aligned to industry standards. Our credentialing partners, we, as often as we can, we try to align what we're doing with industry standards, such as Manufacturing Skills Standard Council. MSSC certification is an industry recognized certification of people who do production manufacturing. You can look down the list here. We do our best to team and partner with the industry whenever we can, in order to make sure that our graduates have a universally recognized credential, and in that way it is then transferable back into the Min-State system. A new partner that I wish I would have put on here is Cisco. Cisco offers training programs that we are now offering in our women's facility in Shakopee. Hopefully, depending on how the rollout there goes, the women in Shakopee will be learning cutting edge industry job skills. Depending on how that rollout goes, we'd like to see that move into other facilities as well. Yeah, I guess maybe next slide. Here's what's on the horizon. More and more, we want to partner with the existing education structure in Minnesota, right? More and more, we want to make sure that our curriculums, that what we're teaching inside translates when our students leave us and re-enter the community. We want to make sure that what they've done here translates into the outside. all of my students are going to be taxpaying residents of Minnesota within a very short amount of time. We want to make sure that what they accomplish here serves the greater needs of Minnesota, but also there's no reason why it shouldn't, why DOC, career and technical education, should not just be one more educational option that's offered to Minnesota citizens. So to the best of our ability, we align what we're doing with the education system that's common to the state. On the horizon, we may be, you saw our if you were paying attention to the list, we have a business management career and technical class that we're offering. We'd like to see that move into an AAS degree, maybe even starting next fall. We're also trying, like I say, we're also trying to make sure every time we offer an education that's translatable to the outside. We're always looking to expand our partnerships with employers, industry, unions, recognize credentials, of course, and expanding our use of technology and technology training. That just simply grows out of what industry and employers in Minnesota are asking for. That's not just us. That's every adult education. Every adult educator in Minnesota should be focusing on technology and technology training. I guess that brings me to the end of my slides. Ms. Brown.
Thank you, Ray. So now people are getting close. Men and women are getting close to their release dates, and it's time to start preparing for the release, and what do those pre-release services look like? So prior to COVID, well, let me say this first. Each facility does have a transition center where there are a variety of resource type information accessible to the incarcerated men and women. And prior to COVID, it was mandated in earlier, Kelly had spoke about mandated services and voluntary services. It was mandated for each individual releasing back to the community to go through a pre-release class. And in those pre-release classes, they would receive information about a variety of things: family reunification, job search preparation, resume writing, working with your agent in the community, just a variety of information that they could receive in those pre-release classes. In some facilities, based on the size of the facility, they may run for 3 days, it could run for 2 days. And again, it just was depending on the facility makeup and what they were able to offer. And those class sizes could be anywhere from 20 to 25 people in those sessions. So now we are in the midst of the pandemic and COVID, and we not able to, or we have to keep social distancing in mind. And I think even prior to COVID hitting, Kelly had did a survey with some of the individuals who were released in halfway houses, and just trying to look at the pre-release services that were offered and getting some information from them, like what is it that you need, or what did you need? What was the most important information for you to have access to help you get prepared for your release, transitioning back into the community? And so with that, these 5 areas were kind of the theme of what the focus group was coming back with. These are the things I would want to have more information on. So I'll start on the right side. I think it's on the right side for you. So support services, I'm just going to circle right here just so you can see where I'm at. So peer recovery, any type of community type resources that, based on where people are being released to, what are the resources in that county, in that community that I'd be able to access based on what my individual needs are. Health insurance and treatment options, mental health services. Again, people may need to continue those type of services upon their entry into the community. So I need to, make sure that I'm getting signing up for the medical assistance so that I could follow up on those things when I get into the community. And then how do I access these mental health services and what's available, again, for me in my community. And then the employment, employability, of course, those individuals who are ready to, upon their release, go look for employment, need that maybe some additional support on that career planning, education, training, career exploration, so giving them information on career force centers, the community employment partners that offer those type of services available to releasing men and women. Housing, that is always a need. Housing is such a huge issue. There's just isn't enough housing. So making sure that, I believe Kelly had mentioned earlier that within the community reentry unit, we have a whole unit that's working on community stabilization and housing and really working with people on their housing plan pre-release, so that when they're in the community, they have a place to go and not being released homeless. And then in the last bucket is that just the basics, the IDs, how to write, in my voters registration, again, educational opportunities. So those are the kind of the main areas that people were wanting information on. So now, because of COVID, when people are released, they're going to get a packet of information based on their community of release that they would have information in these 5 categories here. And also within the community stabilization unit, they have begun to work on a resource repository that is looking at all the different resources throughout the state and making sure everything is updated. If there's hyperlinks to be able to go to the website of those particular organizations, that the staff person can gather more information on that particular community resource and being able to forward that to the individual who is in need of that particular information. Right now, that resource repository it's in-house where staff have access to it, and I think eventually it will get to the point to where the actual population has access to that, and then also the community partners have access to that as well, to where they would be able to go in and then just be the ones that are updating and maintaining their own information for their organization. So we also have been in need of doing technology upfit in all of our transition centers. Again, with COVID, we weren't necessarily up to speed with all of our technology platforms and how we could, have access to the tablets and smart boards and just those things that are necessary to be able to still get information to the men and women while incarcerated as they begin to get prepared for their release. And I don't know, Kelly, if there's anything that you want to add into that as it relates to the transition centers and the pre-release services, please feel free to add anything in there.
I think, Joanne had shared that we did some outreach to men and women who'd been recently released. So up until this redesign of this model, we had people came to a 3-day, 6-hour training in those transition centers, and we gave a whole lot of information to them. So really these buckets came by way of lots of conversations, but one that will stick with me forever that says, no offense, lady, that information was really good, but it was too much, right? Like these are simply the things that we need help with and to create a bridge with in order to be successful. We also, this last legislative session, there's now a reentry supports law that outlines some of these things. So we in the department have been doing reentry services and pre-release for nearly 20 years, right? But now there's actually a law that says as a baseline, these are the kinds of things that the department will do. And some of them are in this chart. So the basics, definitely voter registration, identifications, you know, how we help people equip themselves for their life after incarceration by giving them the basics. And things like health insurance, right? It's an important thing to have, especially when we know that folks who are leaving incarceration have some medical needs or health needs, right? And to help bridge them with that. So there's a law in place. We're well on track of meeting people's needs as they see them, having immediate needs, and we're excited about the work that will come forward from this.
Thank you, Kelly. We also want just to talk a little bit about work release as well. So work release, established back in 1967, long time ago, authorized the Commissioner of Correction to permit careful screening of incarcerated men and women to get a paid or access paid employment, or to go and seek paid employment or participate in approved vocational programming in the community. So that's what work release is about. DOC does contract with county jails, jail annexes, and community correction residential facilities. And on average, as of 2020, on a daily basis, there were 190 women that were on work release status in the community. The goal of work release is to enhance public safety by providing increased supervision and structure while men and women transition from prison to the community. And as you can see in the slide here, men and women that once they get to their 12 months left to serve on their sentence, that's when they are able to apply for work release. So while on work release, men and women are connected to appropriate resources in the community to follow up on any institutional programs that they may have participated in. So for example, those with substance abuse histories, they are required to participate in maybe Alcohol Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or any type of relapse prevention programming. Also, while they're on the work release status, they are required to seek employment or to look for approved vocational training and programming. For those of that may have more difficulties in securing employment opportunities for themselves, they can participate in, be referred to community jobs seeking and job preparation programs. So for example, Goodwill Easter Seals or Twin City Rise or the Emerge program services to help them gain more skills. Maybe they could get more training in carpentry, construction type work, or CDL license certification, forklift certification, things of that nature. Additionally, we have our Bridge program. So for those individuals who would not meet the regular eligibility criteria for work release, they may be considered for work release through participation with the Bridge program. And those are generally for the more higher risk individuals. And the Bridge program, it's a partnership between the work release unit and our MNCOR industry programming that offers a transitional 90-day job for the individuals to participate in. And that 90 days is actually, it's like a pre-release work release, if you will. So when they're in this transitional job, although it's in the community, they are not yet on that work release status. So in this transitional job, they are gaining work experience. They may get forklift certified. And at one time, participants were able to go through OSHA 10 training as well. There is opportunity, because it is a transitional job, opportunity for people to work on reducing barriers or eliminating barriers. So maybe they might have some driver license things that they need to take care of, or child support issues that they may need to get in place. If there's any medical things that they are dealing with, that they can get those medical appointments taken care of, so that when they are completing that 90 days of the bridge program, that they end that job on a Friday, for example, and then they start that competitive program or that competitive employment opportunity on that Monday. And then, now they don't start their new job, and, day 2 of that new job, go to the employer, say, oh, I have court or I have to go to a medical appointment, can I get off? So the transition of the bridge services is really about, trying to get a lot of those things worked out. So once they get into that competitive employment, that there isn't any issues or time needing to take off from that job with that employer. Bridge program services are limited to the Hennepin and Ramsey County releases, and also it is at this point in time still yet just for men as well. We haven't gotten to the point to where women are participating in this type of pre-work release programming. The men that are in the bridge program, they do live in the residential correction facilities. And then there's also transportation that they receive to help them get to and from their work site. There is job search training preparation that's a part of their program, as well as a computer lab, to where they're getting into the last 30 days of that transitional job, that they can begin that job search process. So again, overall, the bridge program, the goal is to help gain some work experience right away in the community, give them more opportunity to get prepared for competitive employment, and reduce barriers or eliminate barriers that they may be experiencing that could impact them once they are in competitive employment. And so now I'm going to pass it on to Jeremiah. That's going to talk more about the Career Force Service and deed services. So Jeremiah, here you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Jeremiah Carter. I am a job services program manager with Deed. And I wanted to come in and provide some information related to Career Force. And when we were thinking about this presentation, some of the things that we talked about were how there's a workforce collaboration or a collaboration between the DOC and Career Force. Within Deed, our mission is very similar. We are set up to empower the growth of the Minnesota economy for everyone. And when you say everyone, you have to include those that are justice involved as well. So I really think what we do fits into a lot of the services that are provided and a lot of the great work within the DOC. And sometimes when these individuals get out, it's how do I put all of this great skills and knowledge that I obtained while I was incarcerated, how do I transfer those skills into a job? And I think that's where the collaboration comes in, because we do provide that service. Because as Kelly stated earlier, 95% of these individuals will transition out of the prison or out of the correctional facility. So what do we do for those 95%, especially those that are looking to enter or re-enter the workforce. So when I thought about the presentation and how I can put it together, what I wanted to do was talk about career force services as a whole, because if our mission is to empower everyone and to really upgrade the Minnesota economy, we have to talk about the services that we offer, and we have to offer these services to anyone that is interested in utilizing the services. So I didn't want to talk specifically about services directed to the justice involved population. I wanted to talk about the services that are directed to all universal customers, but I will talk about some specific services that we provide for those that do have criminal backgrounds. So just getting started, when you think about career force and the locations, we are located throughout the state of Minnesota. And one of the things that happened is during the pandemic, we were forced to evolve our services. So we really moved a lot of our services to a virtual format, and it really made us more accessible to more, to a lot more people. And especially when you think about the justice involved population, they may or may not use our brick and mortar location. So the fact that we have a lot of these virtual services has really made us a little more effective in how we can reach people in the services that we provide. So when you think about career force, how do you get in touch with career force, or how do you access career force? That is the first thing that we always tell people. You want to utilize our online platform, which is careerforcemn.com/locations. At that site, you can actually just simply type in your zip code and the distance that you want to travel, and it will give you all of our locations, and specifically the location closest to your zip code. That is the first step in connecting with a career force location. So if we can go to the next slide. What we do at Career Force, we have job services staff that provide workforce services, and those workforce services include, as you can see, the assessments to help individuals determine their career path and options. Also, like Ray, Kelly, and Joanne were stating, there are so many educational and technical programs that are offered within the DLC. Sometimes these individuals get out and don't know how to access a lot of that information, or how to access a lot of those employers in those areas, or even how to transfer some of those skills into different jobs. So that is something that Career Force can help an individual do, really put them on a career pathway towards competitive and sustainable employment. We also offer assistance in writing and updating resumes. If in transition, these individuals may create a resume, but it may need some updates on the outside. And the fact that they don't have the ability to technology, that is something that Career Force can help out with. We can actually give them that technology assistance to maybe obtain a flash drive, or just simply getting on a computer and getting on an updated program to update their resume. So connecting them to services like that, actually walking them through the technology piece if necessary. Also, we provide interview assistance and learning the skills of interviewing online. And that was one of the areas that I can say Career Force has really evolved in, is providing online services and really showing people how to obtain work through the virtual format. So this has really been a huge service for us, and we provide it to everyone that is interested. So you can connect through Career Force. For veterans have an opportunity to work with Career Force. We also offer specific services for justice involved veterans, dislocated workers, individuals that are no longer in the workforce and trying to re-enter, have a chance to work with our services or work with our service providers. And then we also offer vocational rehabilitation service as well. So we have a lot of services that we offer. We offer them in an in-person format or in a virtual format. Some of our services are eligibility based, but everyone, it doesn't matter if you don't qualify for a specific service, everyone will have access to a multitude of services through the Career Force system to assist them with their job search. So we can go to the next slide. So you can keep clicking. So some of our online services and things that we are offering, We do employment readiness assessments, skills matching, and interest profiler assessments as well. So one of the things that a person can do when they log on or when they log into the Career Force MN website, find the location that they're interested in, they can actually reach out to that location directly. Our locations are actually closed to the public, but we are taking one-on-one appointments, and we're doing a lot of services over the phone as well. So they can connect with the Career Force specialist and look into these guided assessments. This will help them definitely determine a career path and career options. We will go over previous work experience, things of that nature, how to actually frame some of that previous experience, maybe even help an individual frame some of that career experience that they have obtained in the prison and don't know how to put that on a resume. So really getting them in a position to actually present themselves correctly in a workforce setting. So if we can go to the next slide. With our resume review, if a person has a resume that they would like to be reviewed, all they would have to do is email the resume to that specific address of the workforce or career force location that they're interested in. Our staff will actually look at the resume, provide a response, actually even contact that person and give them some feedback on what they can do to update their resume, and then possibly set an appointment with that individual if they don't have the access to technology to update it themselves. But we will provide extensive feedback in our resume reviews to individuals that are interested. And when I say extensive feedback, that can be format, that can be the content of the resume, specific dates of employment, job duties, specific skills on the job. We provide information in all those areas. And I always think it's important to get another set of eyes on the resume, because it really can be helpful in viewing some common mistakes that individuals typically make when they're applying for work. Next slide, please. So we also provide practice online interviews. Individuals have a chance to access our staff through a variety of formats. If you keep clicking, Joanne, it will actually show some of the formats that we have access to that we can provide. Oh, I'm sorry. If you go back one more, that was supposed to be an interactive slide. So my apologies. If you click on it, like if a person has access to WebEx, Teams, Zoom, Skype, or even just a basic telephone interview, we can actually work with those individuals in those formats to practice interviewing. All a person would have to do is call a career force location. Again, call the closest career force location to you, set up a time and date that you would like the interview to happen, give some basic information on the type of jobs that you are looking for. We will create a list of questions, contact that individual, give them the practice or the mock interview, and then give them specific feedback on how that interview went. So again, it is really a chance for a person to put some of those skills to use and get real-time feedback on what they're doing. So if we can go to the next slide. We also offer a number of virtual and interactive classes for job seekers. We also offer a number of services for employers as well. I don't know if we have a number of employers on the line, but we offer virtual career fairs that employers can participate in. But these services are really set up for the online job seeker as well. So we have a number of online workshops, and I'll talk specifically coming up about a particular workshop that is aimed at the justice involved population. But we have a number of workshops set up. We have virtual career fairs. All of these workshops and career fairs are recorded so people can access this information through our website, careerforcemn.com/virtual interactive services and career seekers. So there's information available. If you can't attend live, you are actually able to access this information on our digital platform as well. We also offer, as I stated before, the one-on-one appointments. Those appointments can be done in person or over the phone, and the appointments do have to be set up. You can't just walk in and have the expectation of meeting with a staff person, because our Our brick and mortar locations are closed to the public, but if you call in and schedule an appointment, we can set that appointment up. Someone will meet with you and have that one-on-one appointment. Next slide, please. So some ways to access the services for the one-on-one appointments. And I think this PowerPoint will be made available to you all. So if you are service providers, please feel free to pass this information on. So again, just finding your local career force. You state the preference that you would like to meet. Some individuals like to meet over the phone. We've actually done appointments strictly through email back and forth, and we've also had the video conference. Language is not a barrier. We have a language line. We can always have interpreters on hand. So if you have a person where English is their second language, that's not a problem. If you are a service provider, please have them reach out to us or you can reach out on behalf of that particular customer and let us know that English is a second language, and we will provide an interpreter for that meeting. And however that meeting is going to be set up, we can do it over, again, phone, email, or video conference. And again, that was some of the growth that we've experienced through the pandemic, is how do we provide these services, and how do we provide these services to individuals that don't speak English, individuals that may be deaf or hard of hearing. You know, we were able to put some processes in place and some protocols in place to really provide these services to all individuals that are interested. So if we can go to the next slide. And one of the services that I want to talk about in detail is our New Leaf online workshop. This workshop was started as an in-person workshop. It was actually a 4.5-hour workshop that we would run at all of our locations on a rotating basis throughout the year. But because of the pandemic, we had to move the workshop to an online format, and it is really hard to run a 4.5-hour workshop online. So we did condense the workshop to an 1.5-hour workshop, and it really provides individuals that are having trouble finding work due to their background. It really provides them a platform to talk about what their issues are and then get a lot of their questions answered. But we also provide specific services or specific best practices for these individuals to use when they're working or when they're in their job search. So as you see, the bullet points talk about how to respond to specific questions related to their offense, how to respond in an interview, how to address workplace culture, especially if you're someone that has never worked in the workplace and your work experience really only relates to your prison experience. You know, how does that translate over? How do you integrate yourself into a specific workplace? So we talk about those issues. We talk about, you know, discovering your job skills. That's where we actually start the workshop at, is talking about skill sets. Because if a person does not know their skills, how can they talk about that in an interview? It's not an employer's job to pull out your skills. It's the potential employee's job to be able to sell those skills to an employer. So we really focus on skill sets and how to present those skill sets in a job interview, even if it was related to past experience or past incarceration. There are skills learned and there are skills obtained and there are transferable skills that you can talk about that are really, really marketable to an employer. So we really talk about those and focus on those unique job skills and abilities that individuals have. We give information really on the Ban the Box initiative, as well as Minnesota state statute laws and how they impact individuals' ability to find work. Especially with some of the state statute laws, there are statutes of limitations that are put in place so individuals can apply for specific jobs based on their offense for a certain number of years. So we talk in detail about some of those things, and it really clears up some of the reasons why individuals could not have been getting callbacks in the past, because they were probably applying for jobs that they weren't eligible for, or they got callbacks and then got the job offer and got terminated because the background check came back, things of that nature, or the offer was rescinded because of background. So we really try to clear some of that information up so individuals are not spinning their wheels in their job search. Then we also talk about the tax credit and bonding, which are incentives for employers. I will get into that information in the next slide. We cover background checks, and then we have special guests that come in and talk about the expungement process and how it could benefit an individual. And we have these lawyers also come in and talk about how most individuals are not eligible for expungement. So, it really gives them a chance to find out what their options are based on their particular offense. Excuse me. Excuse me. These workshops are only open to justice-involved individuals. So we do have to turn away a lot of service providers. But when we do turn away those service providers, we offer them a chance to meet with us individually and provide kind of a best practice workshop on working with this specific population. So if you are a service provider, we do ask that you do not sign up for this workshop, but you can contact us directly, and we will be more than happy to provide a workshop for you and your team, or just you specifically, that will talk about best practices in working with this population. Next slide, please. So some of the programs that we cover in detail in our workshop is the federal bonding program. And I don't know if we have any employers on the call today, but I really wanted to bring these programs to light, because these programs are really incentive programs that we use to help people obtain, but more importantly, retain jobs. When you have these specific incentives in place, it really gives the employer that feeling of ease. It can kind of put the employer at ease if they're on the fence, knowing that there's some monetary benefits for hiring this individual. And there's also some security risk that's eliminated when you hire a person from a justice-involved background as well. So with the federal bonding program, this is a program that I oversee. Specifically with the federal bonding program, it really provides a business insurance for an employer, and it really takes away the liability of dishonesty. So if a person was to obtain a job and they decided to steal from that employer, if they were covered under this federal bonding program, that employer, there will not be a loss to that employer. With this particular program, as I stated, it's a federal program that is no cost to any employer. This federal bond is given to employers for the first 6 months of hire for any individual that has a justice-involved background. The bonds range from $5,000 to $25,000 a piece, and that information is determined by the employer. So if, I recently issued a bond to a bank rehired a young lady that was in the banking industry, but because of her background, could not get back into that industry. After having a conversation with the employer about the bonding program and the insurance provided, they decided to give her a chance. But they did ask for a $25,000 insurance policy on this young lady. These insurance policies are given to the employer, again, at any level that they want in increments of $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, or $25,000. No cost or no paperwork is done by either the employer or the employee. That information is done by me. And the paperwork is simply having a brief conversation with the employer to find out specific information on when this individual was hired, their specific job duties, the location of the business, things of that nature. And once we get that information, I can issue that bond instantly to that employer. Within 7 to 10 business days, the employer will have the actual physical document of the bond, which states how much it is. And then it talks about specific information on if they had to cash in the bond. With this bonding program, there's also no deductible. As I stated before, there's no paperwork. So this process is really a streamlined, easy process used as an incentive to get a person in the door, but also used as an incentive to promote retention once a person actually gets the job. And the only qualifier is that the person has to have the job offer from the employer. So the employer or the employee can reach out to me once they receive the job offer. I speak with employers about this program on a daily basis because people are getting hired and employers are actually interested in this program. Another federal program is the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. Most, if not all of you, possibly know about the Work Opportunity Tax Credit. A lot of employers have actually instituted this information or incorporated this information into their applications already, because there are paperwork or documents that need to be signed by the employer and the employee. This particular program is just as it is. It is a federal tax credit for any employer that hires an individual within 1 year of their release from a correctional facility. And that correctional facility can also be a county jail as well. With this particular program, most that are released from a correctional facility are eligible for up to $2,400 in federal tax credits. But there are some additional credits. We do have veterans that are justice involved as well. So they will actually, because they have that veteran status, they may qualify for up to $9,600 in federal tax credits that's broken up over a 2-year period. But I'll talk specifically about the $2,400 portion of the tax credit. That's the one that is most commonly used by justice involved individuals. Again, it is given within a year of that release date. It can be used with as many employers as that person works for in that first year. It doesn't matter if it's full or part-time employment, and that goes for the federal bonding program as well. Just to back up a little bit, these programs can actually be used together, so an individual won't have to pick or choose one or the other if they're interested in using these programs. But when these when the tax credit is issued, there is a pre-screening form, which is the 8850 form, and that is typically the form that is inserted into a lot of job applications, or if you're completing a job application online, you may see the 8850 form, and it may ask some specific questions. Employers are doing that pre-screening to see if you qualify for the tax credit. Once an individual is hired and it's determined that they are qualified for the tax credit, the employer would have to submit the ETA 9061 form within 28 calendar days of this individual being hired in order for the bond to be, or in order for the tax credit to be valid. If it comes in on the 29th day, they will not process that application for the tax credit. But how the tax credit works, once an employer hires this individual, submits the required documents or the required paperwork, the individual has to work up to 400 hours in order for the employer to receive the full $2,400 tax credit. Once they hit that 400-hour threshold, that employer is eligible for the full tax credit. If they don't hit that 400-hour threshold, the employer will get a percentage based on the number of hours that they work. So these are two incentive programs that are set in place to really, as I stated, it really promotes new job opportunities. It really promotes a chance for individuals to get back into jobs that they possibly couldn't get into because of their criminal offenses, but it really is set up to promote retention once these individuals are hired with these employers. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to me directly. I would be happy to talk in detail about these specific programs. But if we go to the next slide, I actually think that is my last slide, and it brings us into questions.
Yes, and I think, thank you very much. That was awesome. Loved it. You guys did a great job, and talked about a lot of different things, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So, but one question was from Pam, and Pam, thank you for joining us today in the chat. And I think this is kind of probably at Ray. So Ray, buckle in. This is going to be a tough one. How do students choose their education pathway? And you're currently muted. There you go.
And in actual fact, I actually did respond to Pam, but I am not as much of a Zoom expert as maybe I should be. I think I did so privately, but that's, yeah. But I will share with everyone. Dead honesty is DOC has not been as effective at assessment and guided placement in the past as we are now. That is it. Our new emphasis on person-centeredness puts us at a place where even way back to intake, we are starting to ask questions of our residents, of incarcerated people, about where they're going, what they're doing. Joanne and others are putting together their skills to get good assessments put together. I guess it's the old saying, your first day of incarceration should be your first day of release planning, right? Yeah. We focus on educational assessments, but more than that, social assessments, all the people in transitions and treatment who are much better at this than I am, want to focus early on where are the needs, how do we meet the needs, and how do we meet the I guess the goals of people coming in. So we start right away at the beginning with solid assessment. We are getting better at guiding our residents to the facilities that they need to be at. If you're asking, is it a work in progress? Absolutely. If you're asking, did other things drive the ship years ago? Yeah, it really did. But I think now we have we're taking a much fresher look at it and saying, where does this resident want to go? What can we get done in the number of months that they're assigned to us? And what programs do we have? How do we get them to those programs? So what I want to say is, maybe not historically, but in the future, it is a very person-centered process. Is that what I'm supposed to say here, Kelly? Yes.
There's some kind of magical term there. Pam, you were going to mention something?
So, Ray, I just had a question. When you listed SolidWorks and they're actually going for the certification, that's actually pretty impressive. How long of a period, and what colleges or who teaches that for you, or how do you go about that?
Well, actually, right now, I have here in Faribault, I have an in-house instructor who's been teaching that for a number of years. That's one of those curriculums that we can easily crosswalk with. Most of the time, we do a lot of our work with South Central College here because they're in Faribault too, right? So we do. And also some DCTC, Dakota County Technical College. We do some curriculum work with them, but those are easy if they're industry recognized standards. I know I can send my students out of here with SolidWorks saying, if you want to further your education in the Minnesota system, here, take this with you. We can do the same thing with our MSSC certification. We know that that's going to crosswalk. It means credits when you get to school. You obviously teach that at RCTC?
Yep.
Okay. I don't know. Am I meandering around to answer the question, or?
No, I just how long of a time? So when I think of this,
I do remember.
that's really a specific skill. They have to be mechanically inclined. They happen to be in Faribault, or you get them to Faribault, right?
Yes.
Those are two really important things about that skill, besides some of the other hands-on types of things you're teaching. So I'm just curious how long they get to work on that.
Right now, and you catch me on the topic I want to talk about. We are taking our SolidWorks program, our manufacturing program, combining that together with some hands-on lab time that we're currently in development. We want to look at a 1-year program in manufacturing technology, where we take guys from ground level, get them certified in SolidWorks, get the SolidWorks certification, get the MSSC certification, and also give them some actual time in a shop where they can work on actually where they can work on Haas equipment. That's what we're currently developing right now. Dan, our engineering instructor, has been doing it for years. He usually is putting guys through, I think man, I'm going to speak out of my element because I know you know these certifications way more than I do. I'm believing it's 4 months that he has them in the first certification, and after that, sometimes guys will go longer, even up to a year, to add on some of the other certifications. But I'm betting you're more familiar with that than I am.
Is this just for in-house people then, or do they actually get to go? Because Cassie facilitated the welding program over at RCTC. So I think that was for people that were being released. Is that correct? Those that know? Cassie Ray, she just left.
Yes.
Yeah.
I messaged her as well. Yeah, I think she had to leave for another meeting. Yeah.
So they offered welding, and I knew they were going to offer the machine shop. So what you're speaking of in the future, is that just at Faribault then that you want that for the hands-on, or is that like a pre-release or a post-release program?
That is something we would house, that we do house right here at Faribault.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious.
I just have a quick question. Are you saying that just recently there was welding classes offered at the Faribault location?
At RCTC, Rochester Community and Technical College.
Okay, and I think that might have been through the partnership that we have with Workforce
Right.
Development Incorporated.
Yep.
Yes, yeah, through their DOL grant. So yes,
yep.
That through their DOL grant, they were able to bring an instructor inside to offer that welding training in Faribault. So that sounded a little bit familiar to me.
Yeah, that was the same type of thing. So I was wondering if there was a program maybe for CAD or something like that, but Faribault already has it in-house. So.
Right. Yeah. Yes, we have those in-house, but I do know, Joanne, that program has come in and supplemented much more of a short-term focus than what we do in-house. What we do in-house is lasts longer, is more in-depth probably, but I believe, Joanne, what's their name again? Southeastern Cooperative. I forget the name, okay. but they were doing a more short-term training for guys who are getting very close to release.
Good. Great question, Pam. I love it. Here's a question for you, and actually for the whole group there, presenters. You know, I heard a lot about the trainings offered to individuals. So let me throw this back at you. What kind of trainings are offered to industries or businesses with regards to preparation? I mean, I spent over 25 years in industry, and the question was, what do I tell my shop, right? Or how do I have the conversation with my team? Or what are the things that I need to do as an industry or as a business to attract and retain somebody who's got these talents and yet having it successfully implement into my business? So speak to me about some of those requirements and help me understand what that might be. That's a lot in a nutshell, and I'll let any of you go ahead and answer to that one. So I'll listen in.
Well, I'll jump in here first, and hopefully others will jump in as well. In my previous positions through MinCorp Industries, through the employee program, we did have a business development individual who would go out and talk with various business about working and offering opportunities to people that have a criminal history, and talking with them about how they could make adjustments within their services. So it wasn't necessarily really training, but just conversations about, you know, what would it take for you to hire someone that has a background, what adjustments could you make within your hiring practices, and so, and even now, we're in the process of getting that position back again. But just really having conversations with employers, like, if you really want to be a second chance employer, really giving opportunities, because I think sometimes employers will give opportunities, but they will exclude certain type of offenses. So for example, someone that has been in for murder, yes, that is a crime against a person, but a lot of times, that was a crime that happened, many years ago. So, they're going to have that longer sentence, and in most cases, or in some cases, I shouldn't say most because I don't know that for a fact, but in some cases, that's the only offense that's on their background. And, if you're going to be a second chance employer, here are the things that the individual participated in to, help with their thinking and, their personal development, the new skills that they have gained, and just really looking at the, keeping it from a skilled based perspective versus, looking at this is what the individual did in their past, knowing and understanding that that employer also has to look at their current workforce and make sure that they're keeping their current workforce safe as well. So just really having those conversations and really encouraging the employer, to be very, ask, have that conversation with the potential candidate, because, through Jeremiah's services and employment services, through DOC, we're working with individuals in how do I talk and how do I discuss my background with potential employers, not necessarily dwelling on the offenses, but the things that I've done to prepare myself for reentry back into the community. This is how I improved myself. This is what I've learned about myself. These are my skills that I have for the employer. So anyone else could jump in on that response as well.
Yeah,
So
I was just,
oh,
I'll be really quick, Kelly. I was just going to say that was one of the things that I actually mentioned as well, is that, when individuals take the New Leaf workshop, we've actually had employers that have actually taken that work or signed up to take the workshop. So that's why we started providing just kind of one-on-one assistance for service providers, employers, to talk about best practices and what that looks like when you bring someone into your organization. So that is a service of Career Force. If employers are interested on how that works, or what release looks like, for that potential employee, we would be happy to come in and provide a more or less a best practices workshop for employers and individuals that were interested. So I'm sorry, Kelly, I didn't mean to steal your thunder here.
no, you and Joanne are the experts around hiring, but I will share a couple little tidbits. In thinking about employers and risk at the workplace, I want us to all think really hard about instances that we've heard or know of where there has been like violence or threatening behavior at the workplace. The ones that we hear about are, I don't even want to say it out loud, like the postal worker, in like some terrible cases. But to my knowledge, and it's limited in scope, but I don't hear from supervision about our clients having those kinds of criminal workplace issues, right? And there is some bonding and other things. So, to be thoughtful around what hiring opportunities could mean, and think about people's skill sets even higher than the kinds of risk that we presume they would present. Because in reality is we're not hearing those kinds of issues coming up for released people. Typically that's not where, or not typically, I mean, I've not heard of any issues on folks on supervision with issues at work. It comes in the home place and with their friends and things outside of work. Likely like you or I would run into troubles. It's not here, Kelly's sitting at her desk, it's some other things in my life that could create those issues. So that's one. The other is that when someone is starting who has some kind of background or criminal offense, right? Who do we share that information with, and how do we share that? And is it important that other people at work know? I don't know. As an employer, that would be something that's up to you. But I know that about this one person I'm hiring, but I may not know that information about someone who was hired years ago You know, I don't always know that same level of information because we're not running background checks on all of our employees all the time. Department of Corrections does, though. I will tell you that, but because we have to, it's different. And the third tidbit that I see that we run into frequently are employers who are wide open to hiring people with backgrounds and would like to create that pipeline. And reality is, though, folks don't have transportation boldly when they leave, like their own private transportation. So if you're an employer who's looking for numbers of people in order to support your business, or you're located somewhere that isn't on a bus line or isn't very achievable, are there some creative solutions around transportation that you could make? It could be an investment on your part, but an investment knowing that you would have employees who are there every day and in a greater volume than one single person trying to catch one ride. So that's something we've been thinking about too. How can we kind of share those examples? Or if you know of other employers who have made some kind of van or van service or like a drop off pickup place in communities that do have more volume in order to create that workforce, we'd love to hear those examples and be able to share those too.
Awesome. Awesome. I happen to have a business in our community that does that as well. It goes around and picks up people. So what a great thing. So are there any questions from that anybody would like to throw into the chat? We've got a couple minutes left. We got 5 minutes too. All right. Well, I'm gonna thank everybody for attending. I want to thank all of you for the information that you shared today. Loved it. Loved it. Loved it. All the knowledge that you shared about the efforts of getting people prepared to come back. What does that look like? How are you doing it? What you're doing? I compliment you on how the details that you provided, and really found it very enjoyable and very interesting to learn this, and really, you know, an opportunity to find opportunities for these businesses as well. Oh, one thing that popped in my head, Ray, PV. Are you entering into PV, photovoltaic? So solar panel installation?
Wait a minute, I had to find my mute button. We do have our CTEC program, which does some of that, and not at the Faribault facility, but I think at Rush City they had a. Hang on. At Rush City, who were they working with? I thought they were working with, oh, no. That's at Moose. I thought they were working with Fond du Lac. I thought their clean energy technology what was involving solar. So
okay. I just figured I had to hit you up on that. I know that's a strong field in there as well. So
right.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all again. Thank you for my speakers and my team, my team here that came together. You guys were rock stars. Great to work with. Thank you for all my participants that came in here as well. Remember, there'll be a survey going out, help us better improve our program. So please fill that out and send that back as well. And if you need professional development, you can hit me up, send me an email. I'll build something together and I'll send it back to you so you can have that for your own programming as well. You can go to our website, Engineering Workforce Seminar, on the Engineering Center of Excellence to get that location, that email address for myself. So again, thank you very much. Thank you all for attending, and especially thank you for my speakers with that wonderful information that you guys had shared. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.